parents and students in Wisconsin are suing their school district. They say the bathroom policy of the district violates the rights of high school girls by allowing boys who identify or feel as though they are girls to use girls' restrooms. The group's lawyer says girls should feel safe at school and their privacy should be respected. New Richmond schools left parents and young girls no choice but to go to court and sue to end this ridiculous policy allowing biological boys into the girls' bathroom, end of quote. Now, one of those students has also spoken out on social media. Watch this.
People keep talking about bathrooms like it's a political issue, but bathrooms in high school are very important spaces for women. For girls, bathrooms aren't just bathrooms. Having a male in that space takes away the privacy that girls deserve. Bathrooms should be a sanctuary at school for girls, not a place where we feel uncomfortable or scared.
The district now faces a federal Title IX investigation. In focus now, let's meet her, Ella Fry, the high school junior you just saw in that viral video. And Corey Brewer is the deputy counsel for the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Ella and Corey, welcome in focus. Ella, I want to start with you. You got very specific about, what privacy means for young women in those spaces. Why did you feel like you need to do that, and what has the response been?
In high school, privacy is one thing that all girls like most of the time, and in the bathroom is the one place where you should feel most privacy. And when I saw that that was getting taken away, it made me feel really uncomfortable, nervous, and anxious.
And what's the response been? Any of the other students saying anything at this point?
Well, a lot of students have been speaking out. We did a walkout protest. We've been silently protesting by using the single-stall bathrooms that they have been provided, and the school has put up maps for students to use the bathroom if they feel uncomfortable in the public one.
I want to ask you about those workarounds. So the school district, I guess, has tried to do a couple of things. They put in, a single stall. And what Ella was just saying. Talk to me about the workarounds and why that's not enough.
Yes, I think boys and girls are different, and that matters in places like bathrooms. And it really matters in high school. Girls deserve privacy, they deserve dignity. And what we're seeing in schools like New Richmond is the girls either forego using the bathrooms during the day, they have to cross the school to use a single stall, they miss class time, or if they don't, then they're uncomfortable. They don't have their privacy. So what we're asking here is not much. We're asking for a return to common sense because this is only affecting girls.
So the stall is across the school, that the boys who identify as girls can go anywhere.
Right. It's impacting every girl in the school district. It really is, because there's one student who is using the girls' bathrooms. They deserve their privacy, and we wouldn't be able to fight back if we didn't have students like Ella, parents like those in New Richmond who are willing to speak up and do something about it.
Ella, the conversation has to do with making this a safe space. I want to ask you about that element of it.
So for me, high school is a very hard thing. So it isn't just a place where you go to use the restroom. It's a place where you go to touch up your hair, touch up your makeup, cry with your friends. So when I found out that that was getting violated and taken away from me, I lost that sense of safeness. So now I'm in the single stall restroom alone, like none of that, privacy that I deserved, that I had before, that has just been ripped away.
Corey, how proud of you must be of Ella and other young women that they are really drilling this home and making it rather easy for the rest of us to all understand what the issues are. Title IX was put so that this wouldn't happen.
Right. Yeah. As a mom of young girls, I am so proud of Ella. I'm so grateful for the parents speaking out and most of all being willing to fight back, because this is happening outside of just New Richmond, Wisconsin, and it's not enough to be outraged. That's one part of it, but you have to be willing to do something about it. So we're really grateful to be able to help this community.
All right, we will watch the story and see what happens next. And you're speaking for a lot of young girls across the country now, Ella Fry. Thank you for that and for being in. Good to see you both.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson. And today we have a really special topic to discuss, something that is very important to me. We're going to discuss privacy and saving girls' bathrooms. I know we've talked about saving girls' sports, but there is something happening in school districts all across the country. There are bathroom policies that allow males who identify as females to use the girls' private spaces, their bathrooms, their shower rooms, their locker rooms. Essentially, there is this double standard where boys have their own private space, but girls do not. Girls are forced to share bathrooms with boys, or sometimes, as in the case of New Richmond, they're forced to suffer the humiliation of going to the office, the nurse's office, or the district office, and get permission to use a single stall bathroom. A bathroom like could be referred to as a janitorial bathroom or the nurse's bathroom, a custodial bathroom. And then they have to grab the key and go use this bathroom. In the case of New Richmond, they would have to do this. And it was so confusing that the school administrators posted maps to the single stall bathrooms and taped them along the hallways of the New Richmond High School. So girls, when they needed to use the bathroom, they'd have to go find it on the map, go get a key, and proceed to be inconvenienced and humiliated. And that's just not fair. It's not right. And it violates Title IX. And I'm not the only one who thinks so, because I'm going to bring on guests, my friends, and amazing lawyers with the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Attorneys Dan Lennington and Corey Brewer are here to talk about an exciting development, in this case in New Richmond. So I'm going to bring them both on right now. Hi, guys. So great to have you on.
Hello.
So I kind of gave a little summary, and so we can jump right in. Corey, I know you have been involved in this kind of struggle that's been happening in New Richmond, Wisconsin, and maybe you could go through some of the history and the other bathroom policy that was written by the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty that was provided as an alternative and rejected, and what led us to where we are today.
Yeah, thank you, Scarlett. I think it's important for individuals to understand the background of how this came to be. And as you mentioned, Will filed a lawsuit in federal court about a week ago. And we represent a parent association. It's actually a parent and student association. It's called New Richmond Parents for Strong Schools. So there are several moms and dads in that group. There are also multiple students in that group. And they are fighting to protect girls' spaces. And we make several claims in our lawsuit, but I think one of the most important issues is that we believe the policy in place at the New Richmond High School, New Richmond School District, but this is really happening in the high school, it violates Title IX. It is violating the rights of girls. We even allege that it is sexual harassment against the girls, because this is unwelcome sexual conduct that they have not consented to. And in fact, they've complained to an administration about. We've heard from a number of parents, both in the association and not. Parents have reached out to us and said, my daughter is uncomfortable. My daughter complained about this, or maybe I called and complained about this. And district administration just said, well, there's nothing we can do. This is the policy. If your daughter wants to use a different bathroom, there are single stall bathrooms for her to use. And as we're seeing, this doesn't impact boys in the school. It just doesn't. It is only affecting the girls. It is a policy that only applies to the girls. And they are, I'm sure you've heard some of this too, they are either foregoing using the bathroom during the school day, which is obviously not healthy. They are crossing the school to use the single stall bathrooms for privacy. And sometimes they have to miss lunch or they have to miss class, and they shouldn't have to do that. Or if they want to keep using the girls' bathrooms, then they're anxious, they're uncomfortable, they don't like it, and it's in our complaint that the male student who is identifying as transgender and using the girls' bathrooms is an upperclassman, and a lot of the younger girls, especially, they're really uncomfortable with him being in there. This is not something that young girls should have to deal with, and any parent, I think, doesn't want that for their children when they send them to school.
No, it's not, and it was really unfair. And I think that there's one, I've talked about this a lot, where one of the girls who's 15, she and her friend went, they were actual victims. They walked into the bathroom and this male was there, and they were immediately very uncomfortable, and they turned around and walked out. They were surprised. They didn't expect this. And when they went to talk to the administrators at New Richmond, they were told that, well, girls, this is just the policy, and we have to do this or we'll get sued. And, this is just the kind thing to do. This is what we should do. Don't you want to be inclusive? Like, don't you want to be nice? And one of the girls said, and I quote, like, this sucks. Why do we have to feel uncomfortable? Why is the burden on us? This is the girls' bathroom. Why can't the boy, why can't he go use a single stall bathroom? And there was no real answer for that. They were just told, this is the way it is, kind of suck it up. If you don't like it, you can use a single stall. And I went through that process. And that was the attitude of the administration, the school board, at school board meetings, same thing. But Dan, the school board was presented with an alternative, were they not? That it didn't have to be this way.
Yes, they could have voted. I think it was in March or February to basically change the policy. There was a motion presented by one of the school board members. It was voted down. So they did have the chance to change this policy. And as you say, that the interesting thing with this, the transgender moment that seems to be passing, is that it only really works if third persons are changing their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The transgender ideology only works when girls and other people are forced to go along with the fiction that a boy is a girl. And it's not just in bathrooms. We've had cases before, and won a case involving Jordan Cernak, a teacher who was forced to use the names and pronouns of a student that he disagreed with their presentation of their quote gender, and that's compelled speech. And so the problem with transgenderism is that not that these people can't live the way that they want to live, but that they're forcing other people to change their behaviors, change their speech, and in many cases put their own bodily privacy and safety at risk, as we see with sports. And those cases are pending at the U.S. Supreme Court right now, where West Virginia and Idaho have banned biological boys, so boys, from participating in sports. And there are, in those cases, involve cross-country runners who are boys that are just beating girls all the time in girls cross-country. But there are, but we've heard stories in Wisconsin about boys playing in girls lacrosse games, which is a I don't want to play lacrosse. I wouldn't want to play lacrosse against girls. I mean, it is not a safe sport. Kids get injured all the time. And to have a 15, 16-year-old biological boy competing against 15, 16-year-old girls is not safe. And that the transgenderism is forcing those girls to accept that they might get hurt because of someone else's quote rights to express themselves. That's not how rights work. You don't get to force other people to say things or believe things, or to believe that you are something other than you actually are. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. I was listening to Ella, who was on Fox News with Corey, and I got 4 boys. I went to high school. I know what boys do in bathrooms. And one of the things she said that was really interesting to me that I never thought about is the social aspect of what goes on in a girls' high school bathroom. And she said things like, we put on makeup and we laugh and we cry and we comfort each other and we deal with this, maybe we've had a hard day. And I'll tell you, that does not go on in boys' bathrooms.
Yes.
Because boys and girls are different. But she said that has been that space where we go, to feel safe and to feel like girls and to comfort each other. That's been taken away from us. Like, that's been destroyed. And it's been destroyed because someone else is forcing their worldview on those girls. That's what's so offensive about this.
Yes. And to your point, and you have 4 boys, it's, boys don't typically, girls will walk into the bathroom and say, I'm bloated, I'm PMSing, does anyone have a tampon? These are things that you don't want to say. It's like this private girl space where the shared experience that girls menstruate. And for teenage girls, this can, especially at 14, 15, this can be kind of embarrassing. This is something that as they grow into womanhood, then it changes, but they don't want a man in that space. Sometimes I have trouble going into, because now they'll have these gender neutral bathrooms. And if a guy walks out, I'm like, I'll wait for the next one. I don't know. It's just kind of a space you just don't want to just share, especially in a public area, especially in high school, especially with little kids, middle school, the prepubescent girls, and then teenage girls. And there's no way, and this was a question asked a lot of the administrators and the school board. How do you deal with the boys that are going to game the system? The boys that are going to realize that this is an easy way to go into the shower rooms or locker rooms and stare at girls. And, and it happens. It's happened in Wisconsin. It happened in Westosha. It happened in Sun Prairie. And it's happened all over the country. So, and they have no answer to that. They have no answer to that because we're all just supposed to play pretend. But the gig is up when parents and girls say, no, I'm not going to pretend. You cannot force me to participate in this lie, especially when my dignity, my privacy, and possibly my safety and well-being are at stake. So, I mean, Corey, what are your thoughts on that as a woman?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson. And today we have a really special topic to discuss, something that is very important to me. We're going to discuss privacy and saving girls' bathrooms. I know we've talked about saving girls' sports, but there is something happening in school districts all across the country. There are bathroom policies that allow males who identify as females to use the girls' private spaces, their bathrooms, their shower rooms, their locker rooms. Essentially, there is this double standard where boys have their own private space, but girls do not. Girls are forced to share bathrooms with boys, or sometimes, as in the case of New Richmond, they're forced to suffer the humiliation of going to the office, the nurse's office, or the district office, and get permission to use a single stall bathroom, a bathroom like could be referred to as a janitorial bathroom or the nurse's bathroom, a custodial bathroom. And then they have to grab the key and go use this bathroom. In the case of New Richmond, they would have to do this. And it was so confusing that the school administrators posted maps to the single stall bathrooms and taped them along the hallways of the New Richmond High School. So girls, when they needed to use the bathroom, they'd have to go find it on the map, go get a key, and proceed to be inconvenienced and humiliated. And that's just not fair. It's not right. And it violates Title IX. And I'm not the only one who thinks so, because I'm going to bring on guests, my friends, and amazing lawyers with the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Attorneys Dan Lennington and Corey Brewer are here to talk about an exciting development, in this case in New Richmond. So I'm going to bring them both on right now. Hi, guys. So great to have you on.
Hello.
So I kind of gave a little summary, and so we can jump right in. Corey, I know you have been involved in this kind of struggle that's been happening in New Richmond, Wisconsin, and maybe you could go through some of the history and the other bathroom policy that was written by the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty that was provided as an alternative and rejected, and what led us to where we are today.
Yeah, thank you, Scarlett. I think it's important for individuals to understand the background of how this came to be. And as you mentioned, Will filed a lawsuit in federal court about a week ago. And we represent a parent association. It's actually a parent and student association. It's called New Richmond Parents for Strong Schools. So there are several moms and dads in that group. There are also multiple students in that group. And they are fighting to protect girls' spaces. And we make several claims in our lawsuit, but I think one of the most important issues is that we believe the policy in place at the New Richmond High School, New Richmond School District, but this is really happening in the high school. It violates Title IX. It is violating the rights of girls. We even allege that it is sexual harassment against the girls, because this is unwelcome sexual conduct that they have not consented to. And in fact, they've complained to an administration about. We've heard from a number of parents, both in the association and not. Parents have reached out to us and said, my daughter is uncomfortable. My daughter complained about this, or maybe I called and complained about this. And district administration just said, well, there's nothing we can do. This is the policy. If your daughter wants to use a different bathroom, there are single stall bathrooms for her to use. And as we're seeing, this doesn't impact boys in the school. It just doesn't. It is only affecting the girls. It is a policy that only applies to the girls. And they are, I'm sure you've heard some of this too, they are either foregoing using the bathroom during the school day, which is obviously not healthy. They are crossing the school to use the single stall bathrooms for privacy. And sometimes they have to miss lunch or they have to miss class, and they shouldn't have to do that. Or if they want to keep using the girls' bathrooms, then they're anxious, they're uncomfortable, they don't like it, and it's in our complaint that the male student who is identifying as transgender and using the girls' bathrooms is an upperclassman, and a lot of the younger girls, especially, they're really comfortable with him being in there. This is not something that young girls should have to deal with, and any parent, I think, doesn't want that for their children when they send them to school.
No, it's not, and it was really unfair. And I think that there's one, I've talked about this a lot, where one of the girls who's 15, she and her friend went, they were actual victims. They walked into the bathroom and this male was there, and they were immediately very uncomfortable, and they turned around and walked out. They were surprised, they didn't expect this. And when they went to talk to the administrators at New Richmond, they were told that, well, girls, this is just the policy, and we have to do this or we'll get sued. And this is just the kind thing to do. This is what we should do. Don't you want to be inclusive? Like, don't you want to be nice? And one of the girls said, and I quote, like, "This sucks. Why do we have to feel uncomfortable? Why is the burden on us? This is the girls' bathroom. Why can't the boy, why can't he go use a single stall bathroom?" And there was no real answer for that. They were just told, this is the way it is, kind of suck it up. If you don't like it, you can use a single stall. And I went through that process. And that was the attitude of the administration, the school board, at school board meetings, same thing. But Dan, the school board was presented with an alternative, were they not? That it didn't have to be this way.
Yes, they could have voted. I think it was in March or February to basically change the policy. There was a motion presented by one of the school board members. It was voted down. So they did have the chance to change this policy. And as you say, that the interesting thing with this, the transgender moment that seems to be passing, is that it only really works if third persons are changing their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The transgender ideology only works when girls and other people are forced to go along with the fiction that a boy is a girl. And it's not just in bathrooms. We've had cases before, and won a case involving Jordan Cernak, a teacher who was forced to use the names and pronouns of a student that he disagreed with their presentation of their quote gender, and that's compelled speech. And so the problem with transgenderism is that, not that these people can't live the way that they want to live, but that they're forcing other people to change their behaviors, change their speech, and in many cases put their own bodily privacy and safety at risk, as we see with sports. And those cases are pending at the U.S. Supreme Court right now, where West Virginia and Idaho have banned biological boys, so boys, from participating in sports. And there are, in those cases, involve cross-country runners who are boys that are just beating girls all the time in girls cross-country. But there are, but we've heard stories in Wisconsin about boys playing in girls lacrosse games, which is a I don't want to play lacrosse. I wouldn't want to play lacrosse against girls. I mean, it is not a safe sport. Kids get injured all the time. And to have a 15, 16-year-old biological boy competing against 15, 16-year-old girls is not safe. And that the transgenderism is forcing those girls to accept that they might get hurt because of someone else's quote rights to express themselves. That's not how rights work. You don't get to force other people to say things or believe things, or to believe that you are something other than you actually are. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. I was listening to Ella, who was on Fox News with Corey, and I got 4 boys. I went to high school. I know what boys do in bathrooms. And one of the things she said that was really interesting to me that I never thought about is the social aspect of what goes on in a girls' high school bathroom. And she said things like, we put on makeup and we laugh and we cry and we comfort each other and we deal with this, maybe we've had a hard day. And I'll tell you, that does not go on in boys' bathrooms.
Yes.
Because boys and girls are different. But she said that has been that space where we go, to feel safe and to feel like girls and to comfort each other. That's been taken away from us. Like, that's been destroyed. And it's been destroyed because someone else is forcing their worldview on those girls. That's what's so offensive about this.
Yes. And to your point, and you have 4 boys, it's, boys don't typically, girls will walk into the bathroom and say, I'm bloated, I'm PMSing, does anyone have a tampon? These are things that you don't want to say. It's like this private girls space where the shared experience that girls menstruate. And for teenage girls, this can, especially at 14, 15, this can be kind of embarrassing. This is something that as they grow into womanhood, then it changes, but they don't want a man in that space. Sometimes I have trouble going into, because now they'll have these gender neutral bathrooms. And if a guy walks out, I'm like, I'll wait for the next one. No, it's just kind of a space you just don't want to just share, especially in a public area, especially in high school, especially with little kids, middle school, the prepubescent girls, and then teenage girls. And there's no way, and this was a question asked a lot of the administrators and the school board. How do you deal with the boys that are going to game the system? The boys that are going to realize that this is an easy way to go into the shower rooms or locker rooms and stare at girls. And, and it happens. It's happened in Wisconsin. It happened in Westosha. It happened in Sun Prairie. And it's happened all over the country. So, and they have no answer to that. They have no answer to that because we're all just supposed to play pretend. But the gig is up when parents and girls say, no, I'm not going to pretend. You cannot force me to participate in this lie, especially when my dignity, my privacy, and possibly my safety and well-being are at stake. So, Corey, what are your thoughts on that as a woman?
Yeah, I totally agree. My kids are young right now. I have 3 little girls, but I think most parents agree with this. What keeps going through my head is I hear opponents, mostly locally in New Richmond. I think largely most people agree with this. It's a common sense issue on, whatever you are politically. If you're a male, if you're a female, most people agree that there should be separate spaces, especially for children and especially in schools. But of course, there is some pushback. And rather than answering some of those questions like what you posed, of course, we don't want anyone to quote game the system or harm girls, but unfortunately, we know that has happened. I've also heard some of the girls raise questions about how do you know and this is just a good faith question, how do you know the student is transgender versus a boy that just wants to use the girls' bathroom? How do you know? And there doesn't seem to be an answer for that. I'm also thinking through some of the relevant case law, because there's this one case, and I don't want to get too into it because we've talked about this on podcasts before, but one of the cases in our part of the country involved a transgender student, and the court did get into some of those questions, which people seem to forget. You know, does the student have gender dysphoria? Is it documented medically? You know, those things do matter. And the other thing is that, you know, I said this is a common sense issue that most people agree on. There are solutions to this that can respect the privacy and dignity of all students. And it shouldn't involve all of the girls in the district, all of the girls in New Richmond High School being impacted or being unsure or being worried if they're going to run into a boy in their bathroom. And of course, we should respect transgender students too. Of course, it feels silly that we even have to say that. But there needs to be a solution that isn't harming the girls, and a policy that isn't harming the girls. And that's just not what we're seeing right now. And it's very well documented.
So now, in this case in New Richmond, it was announced in March that by the Trump administration, the Office of Civil Rights, that they were launching a Title IX investigation into the New Richmond School District. There were complaints filed, and frankly, this story went completely viral. And I know I had a hand in some of that. And the reason why it went viral is because we had so many parents that showed up to some school board meetings, hundreds of parents, and their speeches were recorded and put on the news and social media. And in particular, the speeches of Ella and other girls her age that had the courage to stand up and speak to their school board. Ella's 16 years old, had never done something like this before, had never engaged in public speaking in an open forum like this, was the first person called, and she stood up and she gave a tremendous 3-minute speech in which she just simply said, I shouldn't have to be here. I shouldn't have to do this. I don't feel safe. I've told you I don't feel comfortable. There's a solution, and the solution doesn't involve having this boy in my private space. I'm worried what's going to happen next. I'm worried that the next thing you know, there's going to be boys in my locker room or playing on my athletic teams. And I want this to stop. And I think the only way it can stop is if I stand up, and I'm going to represent all these other younger girls that are too afraid to stand before you and say exactly what I just said. And her speech, her authenticity just shone right through. This, again, went viral. We called her Wisconsin's Riley Gaines. And her tenacity and willingness to keep speaking, even though she keeps, social media is not necessarily nice to folks that stand up against this, but she and her mom continued to speak out. And that got the attention of a lot of people. And so this Title IX investigation was launched. How is this different from what the announcement that was made this week about the lawsuit? What is different about that? And I read through the complaint. It was, a very detailed, lengthy complaint. For those who don't understand why the two things, why are both happening at the same time?
Yeah, I can sort of explain that. There's two processes involved here. One is a investigation by the Trump administration. So the New Richmond School District receives federal money, and the U.S. Department of Education gives them that money, and they say, if you're going to take our money, there are certain things you have to do. For example, you can't discriminate based on race, and you can't violate girls' rights under Title IX. And we as the federal government have the right to investigate you and potentially take away the money that we give you if you are violating people's rights. And that's an administrative process that's run by government investigators who make a finding that there's been discrimination, and then the agency, the U.S. Department of Education, can then penalize the district. They could take away their federal money. They could file their own lawsuit against them. They could seek some sort of injunctive relief or have a letter of understanding where the school district agrees to change their policies. That is a administrative investigation that's handled by government people who work for the U.S. Department of Education. Is outside of the court system. We filed a federal lawsuit in the U.S. Federal District Court in Madison. That is a case brought by our parent association, which includes students and moms and dads. And we filed it in front of a federal judge. And the federal judge can do different things that the agencies can do. The federal judge can order the district to change their policy. They can order the district to pay us money and attorney's fees. And so that is a process that happens in federal court in front of a federal judge rather than an investigation that happens at the agency. So those are two different things. It's important in this sort of Trump era, though, we've discovered that we need to go to court more because the court process can work faster and it can be more definitive. One of the things that the Trump administration did that I've been critical of online is that they decided they wanted to shut down the U.S. Department of Education. And when they decided they wanted to shut down the U.S. Department of Education and cut funding and disperse all the employees to other agencies, they also cut the staff at the Office of Civil Rights, which is the exact section of the U.S. Department of Education that does these investigations. And so, for example, in the Westosha case, in the Sun Prairie case, we haven't heard anything. We can't get anybody to respond to us. We can't get anybody to even respond to an email because so many people have left the U.S. Department of Education and or been fired or laid off that there's no one left to, answer the emails or actually run these investigations. And so we need to start going to court more, which means we need plaintiffs who have actually been injured and who can assert constitutional claims, and then get federal judges to make rulings because, although the conservatives have said since the 1980s, we want to get rid of the Department of Education. That's great. The government's too big and it does too much, right? But you have to remember there are certain offices within the federal government that do things that we do like. And that do protect our rights, and the Office of Civil Rights and the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and a lot of these agencies have watchdogs within them that are designed to help people like parents and people like taxpayers who are having real problems. And so it's all well and good to cut the government, but you should probably do that with a scalpel instead of a meat cleaver. So that's why we brought this in federal court.
And my mic muted. That does kind of explain some things because you see a lot of announcements of investigations in Colorado, in California, in Maine, and we cheer and we're really glad to see them. But then sometimes you're just waiting, like what's going to happen next. And is that typically a pretty long, exhaustive process so that if there's less staff, then it's even made longer?
Unfortunately, yeah, I think that is pretty likely. We have seen the Office for Civil Rights issue a few findings in relation to some of the investigations that it launched. But it took a while. It took a while for any of those investigations to be concluded. And now there are some that are pending. There are some that are no investigation opened yet, even though like in Westosha, there's a clear harm and a clear violation under Title IX. And unfortunately, I don't know how long things will take or if or when it will get noticed. But like Dan said, this is one aspect. I'm sure there are more, but this is one aspect of the federal government where we want them to be enforcing civil rights laws.
Yeah. So it's normally a long process. So it already is, because it's the government, it's detailed. You have to go through a lot of records and emails and all of that thing. And then with less staff, it's something that's made even longer. And to reference, Westosha was the shocking case. As a matter of fact, I did an interview with Charlie Kirk before his murder, where he said Westosha was the worst case he has ever heard. That's how bad it was. Westosha was a case where a 16-year-old male over 200 pounds, obvious male. Someone did not look like really authentically going through some sort of transition, but this male would hang out in the girls' locker room and watch them undress and do things that I would label sexual harassment, do things that made the girls very uncomfortable. They complained en masse when they tried to even use those single stalls that we talk about. There were long lines for them, and eventually the school district was like, no, like shutting some of this stuff off because of all the confusion. And Charlie Kirk made this remark that kind of changed my mind about single stalls, where he said, where you put these so-called gender neutral single stalls, that's where all the real girls have to line up, because these bathroom policies are just terrible. And it ends up that, you know, boys are in the girls' bathroom and girls have to line up to use that space that was meant to protect the privacy of the usually male who is identifying as a female. And that's not fair. But so Westosha was a very extreme case. There's a lot of allegations made in it, and anyone could go to your website and learn the details about it. But that's why it's kind of surprising. That's one that I'm sure you guys would like to hear back about, because there's parents that are still, you know, living under that policy, and girls that are in, you know, in that school district.
Yeah. We saw one student leave the school. Her parents said, no, we're not doing this, and left the school. There's also documentation that the girls' grades were lowered. They literally were failing gym class, either because they were showing up not in gym clothes because they didn't want to change in the locker room with this boy, or they were late to gym class because they were waiting for a single stall to open up and there weren't enough for all of the girls to do it at the same time. So it was impacting their grades just because they didn't want to change clothes in front of this boy.
And they were told that they were being dramatic. They were told they were being dramatic for complaining, which
yeah, all of that needs to get investigated. We've heard, you know, we have clients in that case. We submitted the federal civil rights complaint on behalf of 2 families. And I've heard additional allegations about what the students were told by different administrators, teachers. That's what needs to be investigated. Were these girls raising complaints and just brushed aside? That matters.
How do you think, Dan, how will what's happened in New Richmond, will that have a positive effect on all these other cases? In Sun Prairie, there were 4 14-year-old girls showering. And I remember, Dan, when it was, what was it, 2022 that we talked about this on a podcast where broke the story. These 4 girls were just changing after their gym class, and an 18-year-old male undressed, disrobed, exposed himself to them and said, "I'm trans, by the way." And
that was May of 2023. We filed that during the Biden administration, and it was so bad the Biden administration opened an investigation.
Wow.
Which they never did in Westosha, and they have yet to do a New Richmond. So the Biden administration actually had a better track record of opening investigations. And amazingly, it's the Trump administration, the one that won't actually come down and make a decision on these cases. So, I would encourage, we've been trying to encourage people who have connections in the U.S. Department of Education to take this seriously, people who know other people in the Trump administration, to say, like, you're kind of losing the people who put you in office when you can't even do these basic things. You're losing support. And I know that the New Richmond case got the attention of the White House, and they were very interested in it. But it would be nice to see some action and some definitive action, because I've heard from a lot of parents, and we talked a little bit about this, about like kids suffering in silence, and girls just dealing with things they shouldn't have to deal with. So, for example, we've heard numerous stories about the bathroom situation at Madison East High School, where allegedly they had just started to shut down girls' bathrooms. And that girls were reporting to their parents that they couldn't even use the bathroom during the school day. And obviously that's not a healthy situation. And we've heard that
bathrooms. So just get rid of them.
Yeah, they got rid of them on 2 of the 4 floors, I believe, at Madison East. That was the plan. And they were only having the gender neutral bathrooms. They would have allegedly, this is what the plan was. I don't know if they have carried it out so far, but there was going to be boys' bathrooms, and then there was going to be the gender neutral bathrooms, and there was not going to be any more dedicated girls' bathrooms. Now, that was what I heard as far as like 2 months ago. But, to your point, the reason why we're talking about New Richmond is not because, Dan and Corey are talking about it, or Moms for Liberty is talking about it. It's because these girls and these parents actually got up and said something. And I know that you have done, social media training for other moms, and told them, like, the best way to get your story viral is to have a real person who's really affected, who has been there, who can tell their story. The girl who can say, I was in the bathroom and this is what happened. Or their mom saying, my daughter, this happened to her. People who are particularly impacted by these decisions out and telling their story in the public. That's what gets things viral. As much as I would like to, say something and make it go viral, it's much more interesting to the public if it's a real mom, a real dad, a real daughter, a real son with a real problem, who say, this is happening to me, because it allows people to relate to that and say, like, oh, that, it's happening to my daughter too. And it's not hard. And you're right. Social media is not kind, and people have to be prepared to be criticized or have unfair things said about them. And I'm sure, Scarlett, you've had your fair share of people say nasty things about you, and
Even had them sue me
and sue you for saying things, and it's not, but I meant to post this, but Clarence Thomas gave a speech yesterday, and towards the end of it, there's about a 3-minute clip where he talks about the cost of preserving liberty. And the cost, he says, is you can't just stay on the sidelines. You have to get out there. You have to speak up at school board meetings. You have to make your views known. And when you do that, you can lose friends, and you can be criticized, and you can lose jobs. And he talks about all the costs of liberty, but that is part of what it is to be a citizen. That is why we're able to live in a place that has free speech and fair rule of law and equality and due process, and is because people are willing to say, that that policy is wrong. And if parents can't do that, then these girls are going to be the ones who just go to school every day and keep their head down and feel like they have nowhere to go. And so social media is very important for our democracy and how our country functions, is that people need to be able to use it to make complaints, just like, we used to use handbills and write newspaper articles and things like that made people aware of horrible things that were happening. And so people need to really stand up and know that if they want to preserve their liberty, they have to talk about it and be public about it.
And Corey, you've talked about that before, that a big difference with New Richmond was that there were girls that spoke up. There were victims. And it was a face that people could associate, like this girl was harmed, but not just the public, but judges, that it's important for them to hear the voices of the victims. And that when there are students and parents supporting them that are willing to speak up, it makes a whole lot of difference. I think a lot of different parents, even some from Westosha, reached out to me and said, "Hey, what gives? Why did this happen?" And I said, to be honest, first of all, these parents, the organization, everything, we've learned a lot over the years, but the big difference was girls spoke up. Girls stood up. Girls and boys led a protest out of the school, holding signs. They made their voice heard. And the parents, a lot of times parents will even say to their kids, like, "Oh, you don't want to risk that scholarship, or you don't want to risk that someone won't like you." Parents, that's not great advice, in my opinion, to give to your kids when they're in a situation like this. You're teaching them very early on that when things get really hard and their rights are violated, they should just take it, and they should be quiet and let that abuse happen. And that's the wrong message to send to young teens. Instead, I think it's better to say, you need to fight. You need to fight for what's good and true and beautiful. This country depends on people like you fighting, and I got your back, and I'm gonna make sure that no harm comes to you. But I want you to stand up and fight. I think that's the better message to give to our daughters if they are in these situations.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, to your point about the legal aspect, that is absolutely true. Of course, speaking out publicly will garner more attention. But the courts do they look at the whole record and look at who's impacted, what are people saying, what concerns were raised, how were the concerns handled. And in a recent Seventh Circuit case, the court explicitly noted where a transgender student wanted to use the bathroom that didn't align with her biological sex. They said, well, we have nothing in the record that anyone else is bothered by this or impacted by this, so we can't consider that as we make our decision. I think we have a different story here. We do. And I was actually recently asked by a reporter, why New Richmond? There's plenty of policies like these. Why New Richmond? And I half wanted to say, well, did you read the complaint? Have you been following social media? We have documented instances of girls raising their concerns and the administration telling them, it's our policy, we're not changing it. Nope, you don't get privacy in your bathrooms. Too bad. If you feel uncomfortable, then use the single stall. If you're late for class, we'll give you we'll excuse the tardy. Well, they shouldn't have to miss class. So we have this documented record. I think even more will come out as this litigation proceeds. And I do hope, to your other point, that this encourages others around the country, whether it's parents, whether it's students, to speak up, to have the courage. And I think it was important how the girls did it at the school board meeting, in the media. They said, look, I'm a high school kid. I deserve privacy in the bathroom. I don't want to be anxious. They did it respectfully and in an honest way, a
Yes.
real way to show that this is a real harm. I'm a kid. I go to school. I have to use the bathroom. I don't want somebody of the other sex in there. That's okay to say. It's okay to say. And I think others should be encouraged to speak out and speak against any policies like what we're seeing in New Richmond and fight for our kids.
Yeah. I think the way that they handled it, that there were parents that spoke up, and they they sent emails, they kept copies, they when they told their daughters, do not use, it's okay, don't use that bathroom, request, go use the single stall. And when that happens, make sure that you send me a text and let me know that this happened. Like, they kept a track, they kept a paper trail. They were respectful in everything that they did. I mean, you could look through through your complaint, and we've posted a lot of this stuff on our social media. There were respectful requests and even respectful responses. And the parents have been, even to the administrators who they don't agree with them politically, or they don't agree with their decisions, they've maintained professional demeanor. And they, while I could say on the other side, there's been a lot more vitriol and unkindness. And we've helped to, what the good thing about this is, with social media, when you do this right, we help to expose that so that the public has sympathy, more sympathy for the parents and the girls, because the bad actors and the activists and these radical activist groups, like, like the same people always, it's like Indivisible and all these anti-Moms for Liberty groups, and they say they're horrid, hateful things, and it only makes the girls and the parents more sympathetic, because they're behaving in a way that is pretty normal, and it's respectful. And none of them, all of these girls are like, I don't have any hate in my heart. I just want to have my own private space. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And so I think that message has resonated, and also the work that Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has done. First of all, this isn't any of our first rodeo. We've all learned a lot. We've got the Trump administration that has made things easier. But you guys have laid the groundwork. You have, and you could talk about that, Dan, maybe a little bit. You have model policies. You have, you hold seminars and webinars, and you inform parents. And we had a webinar, Corey, with Southeastern Legal Foundation, where we were informing parents in Wisconsin and the country, here are your rights, here are the laws, here are the limitations, here's what you can do. And so all of that information empowers parents, and then they know what to ask. They know, what should I say in my email? And they can always reach out to you guys and get that helpful information and be directed to where they can act in an informed way that really works. And I think that's what New Richmond showed, that was another component, that they armed themselves with knowledge, and then they used it, and they used it effectively.
Yeah, Dan, you should speak to some of those resources, but I just wanted to say quickly, when we learned that there was going to be a special board meeting in New Richmond, not only did we produce the model policy, which by the way is free and publicly available for any district to adopt, but we also shared with several of the parents that reached out to us some of our legal briefing on this issue in other cases. And we also sent a letter to the New Richmond School Board, because they put out some guidelines for public comment that were really concerning. And we just wanted to let them know that we're watching, and encourage them to allow the public to speak and not have their First Amendment rights violated, which didn't end up being an issue, but we wanted to flag that for them. And
they were trying, though. They were trying. And I think your letter made a difference, because that school board was attempting to limit their speech, and they didn't they knew what was going to happen, and they were actively trying to stop it. But I think that you said, hey, these parents have the right to have their voices be heard. You should let them see.
Yeah, that's available on our website too. And when we sent that, I said to the attorney, I'd be happy to discuss this or the bathroom issue with you. Just give me a call. Let's talk about it. I did not hear back.
Yes.
Yeah, we just as far as let people know about the resources, our website's will-law.org. For several years now, Corey's been leading our Restoring American Education project. So that website, if you just want to remember, it's restoringamericaneducation.org. And on there, the best thing about these resources is, like, number one, we have school board policies that are literally documents that you can give to a school board member, or a school board member can take to a meeting and say, I move that we adopt this policy. It's there. It's all written out. They don't have to change anything. They can just adopt the policies, policies about bathrooms and pronouns and parents' rights and all sorts of inequality, all sorts of things that's, I don't remember how many. Do you know how many we're up to now, Corey? You've got
40. We're in the 40s.
So we've
Each
got
one has a legal analysis too.
Yeah.
And Ben, the school board member, actually did that. He took that policy and he introduced it. So
yeah. So there are, like, in the 40s of policies that you can use, that school boards can just easily adopt at their next meeting. There's also parent resources. One of the most popular resources we have is the parental opt-out form, which you can click on and just fill out your name and print it off and give it to your teacher or email it to your teacher, which allows you to exercise your rights that were recognized in the Mahmoud case from last year. The idea that parents have the right to direct the upbringing of their children, and that if there are objectionable materials, such as transgender books or whatever is sort of objectionable that conflicts with your religious rights or your religious liberties, or your right to direct the upbringing of your children, you can just opt out of those topics, and you have a constitutional right to do that. There's also the parental toolkit on there. And then also we've got, the school scorecard, which I use all the time and is great for social media. And we actually will be updating how this looks in the next couple of months. But the school scorecard is the thing where you can select your school district, and it will show the math and English proficiency scores. It'll show average ACT scores, show, dangerous behaviors, show your graduation rates, show how much money is being spent per student, which most people are very shocked about how much money is being spent per student. And then recently we just put out our calculator about what would happen if to your property taxes if Act 10 is repealed, if we keep this ridiculous 400-year veto that Tony Evers used, and also if the plaintiffs win what we call the school funding lawsuit, which is a lawsuit that's pending right now, basically aimed at getting rid of school choice and aimed at driving up everybody's property taxes so that there could be basically a constitutional right to unlimited school funding. I guess they want every student to be funded at a level of $30,000 or $40,000 a year, or whatever ridiculous amount of money they want to spend. So all these resources are available on our website, and you can post them on your social media. You can use these to create your own content, which to talk about what's going on in your school district. So people need to get this information out there and use it to protect their rights and protect their pocketbooks and make their school districts better.
And Corey, if you're a school board member and you're in our area, Wisconsin, you're going to have an event coming up very soon.
Yes, thank you. Next Friday, April 24th in Wauwatosa, which is just
on
west
my
of
calendar,
Milwaukee.
signed up today.
Yes. Yes, it will be our third annual school board summit. We're very excited. We have a full lineup, everything from teacher speech to technology in the classroom. How are schools using it? Should they be using it? You know, the big conversation last year was around cell phones. Now it's like, okay, but what about
Yeah,
these Chromebooks and all this
yeah,
software? Is it actually helping the kids or is it hurting them? Media tips for school board members. We are going to have a teacher panel, all kinds of annual Will K-12 legal update, and our keynote is actually Dr. Cade Brumley from Louisiana. So we're excited to welcome him and hear about some of the reforms that he's been able to get across the finish line in Louisiana to support kids and support teachers, and see what local school board members here can draw from that to take to their districts.
yeah.
We'll have breakfast, we'll have lunch. We're going to have some exclusive resources for everybody that comes. Registrants are going to be invited to a happy hour the evening before, so it should be a really good event.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I sat at a table where I sat next to some school board members who were like, "Oh, so you're Scarlett Johnson," and wasn't by the end they were like, I had the number. They were like, "You're nothing like I thought you would be," because when talking, that really it all comes down to we just want what's best for our kids, and we want them to have a good education, and that's exactly what is missing. It's a missing component when I thought, I don't know if you guys all saw this, but over last weekend, some Democrats like Josh Shapiro and Rahm Emanuel got together, and I thought it very interesting when Rahm Emanuel said to Hakeem Jeffries that this DEI stuff's got to go. Like, so focused on bathrooms and all this stuff that the kids' scores are plummeting. And Hakeem Jeffries said, "Well, we can do both." And Rahm Emanuel said, "No, you can't. Look at the numbers. You can't. You're not doing both. You know, we need to. This isn't good for the kids. It's not a great for our publicity." And I would hope that there are more, that we just don't look at this politically and we look at it in a common sense manner. That it's silly and ridiculous that you have to file a lawsuit for parents to protect their daughters from a boy that identifies as a girl that wants to use their space and is potentially sort of harassing them. That's ridiculous that this has to happen, but this is where we're at. It's ridiculous that we have to have the Trump administration and please, like, ask them, please look into what's happening in Wisconsin and throughout the country, because it's very real what's happening. And it's just such a distraction from really important issues like our kids' reading proficiency. As a country and as a state is below 50%. They are not reading at grade level. They can't do math at grade level. That we've become diploma mills. Instead, we graduate kids, but they don't actually have the skills that they need to thrive and become high functioning adults, make a good wage, go to college. Like, this is such a disservice, and we spend a great deal of money on education and they just want more. And with May Day, I don't know if this May Day thing that's coming up May 1st, you've got teachers unions so focused on calling in sick so that they could go protest in the streets. That's their singular focus. And they're not focused on the fact that in Wisconsin, Black children in Milwaukee, only 4 or 5% can read at grade level. They're not concerned about that. They're concerned about shutting down, kids losing a day of school, and they could go protest with the trans signs, with the whatever signs, all the things, all the political activism. And it's just a shame.
Yeah, it's I think what, one of the main points you're bringing up here is that people need to really just focus on principles, not politics, because these political parties are always going to let you down. Republicans, Democrats are always going to let you down. And you know what? They're going to shift their positions and change their positions. So it's important for people to focus only what are the issues that are important to them, not what their party wants to do. But yeah, we have, I think, we have got one of the most significant. We have the most significant racial achievement gaps in the whole country. We have, I think, the lowest incidence in the country of marriage in the Black community, and two-parent households in the Black community, and poverty, and these whatever the left thinks they're doing. They have been in control of Milwaukee education. They have been in control of Milwaukee politics, and we spend $26,000 per student in Milwaukee, and it keeps getting worse. And the achievement gap between Blacks and whites gets worse and worse every year. And, maybe the people who've been in charge should be the ones to be blamed for what's going on. And so, I think, if you could go to our school scorecard, you can pull up your district. It's not just under 50% for math and reading. There's a lot of districts that are about 35%. And it's gets worse and worse every year. And so you have to ask the teachers who are bent on going out and protest, like, what are we paying you for? And a lot of the times, the issue is not necessarily the teachers, but the growth of the administrative staff that keeps getting more and more bloated. And we have even that on our school scorecard. You can see, how many non-teaching positions there are and how those have been growing over time. So, our public schools those are government agencies, and like any government agency, they become bloated and inefficient. And so, people have to realize that when they vote in April for the school board, they can make real changes. So it is very non-surprising, but disappointing that teachers are gonna leave kids in school on May 1st so they can go protest for apparently more money, which it's almost as if the money is inversely proportional to the achievement.
Well, for May Day, what they're protesting, sort of like No Kings, it's a pure political protest stand. It's not even, it's all about, they are protesting the regime. And I've had the unfortunate, it's my job to monitor these groups. And so I've watched probably 25 hours of May Day trainings, and it's absolutely pure political power. And they don't even pretend that this is about education or kids. It's about ending the Trump administration and anyone who is right of center, displacing them of their power. And it's very, I don't think that most educators agree with this. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure put upon them to either just be quiet or follow along. And that's why there's groups like Teacher Freedom Alliance, where we hope that more educators will escape the clutches of unions. I mean, in Wisconsin, we do have Act 10 for now, but even with that, there's sometimes pressure to join unions because of liability coverage and for providing professional development. And that is solved by joining the Teacher Freedom Alliance, which is an organization that genuinely cares about the education of kids and wants to take politics out of education, and to end this monopoly of power that teachers unions have. And I think, will you guys be attending that they're going to have a big event as well?
We will, yes. I'll be there. Yes, we've been there the last 2 or 3 years. It's a great event for teachers, directed at teachers. I think they're expanding it now to include content for school board members as well. But great group, lots of valuable content, and it's just really good for networking. Teachers can meet other teachers from across the country, learn about what Teacher Freedom Alliance has to offer. Yes, very good event. It'll be in Dallas this July.
Yeah, I love Ryan Walters. He comes on all the time, and I love what they're doing. And Corey DeAngelis as well, who has come to Wisconsin to some events, which is great. Andy, I wanted to talk a little bit because I saw on your social media, Will Flanders had posted that DPI was kind of up to their old tricks again. That's the Wisconsin Department of Instruction, which is our state education. While we were talking about the these horrific numbers of kids that are reading at less than grade proficiency, we also have to remember, because the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has been monitoring the fact that the standards lower just a little bit every year. So these, even the percentage, when we say 50% of kids can read proficiently, and that's like a high number, that's not even true, because every year DPI keeps lowering the standards and changing the bar and
Yes.
like putting their thumb on the scale. And so in reality, the decline of education in Wisconsin and throughout the country, not just Wisconsin, these tactics they're the same. Every state where you've got, especially where you've got a Democrat governor, but this isn't exclusive to party. It's a lot of, even in Florida, Ron DeSantis, it's really difficult to overcome the bureaucracy of education, even when you've got a great governor like Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, the thing that happened with the spending is that the sort of narrative on the left was that we're spending less money now than we have over time. If you adjust it for inflation, we're spending less now than we have in the past couple of decades. And so we pulled all the data off the DPI website, ran the math, and found that no, we're spending more. Even if you adjust for inflation, we're spending a lot more than we were in 2000 and 2010 per child. And DPI's response to that was just to remove all that data from their website in response to us proving them wrong and proving their narrative wrong. So I
love the post. We want to open the DPI files.
Yeah, so DPI is up to their old tricks. And every year, so I think they're called the cut scores is so they have these, like forward exam and these different standardized tests. And I think it's after the tests are, Corey may know more about this, but after the tests are completed by the students, the DPI meets in a non-public meeting, and they all decide like what is the level that we're going to call proficient. Like so if there's, you get a 65% on your test, is that proficient or not? What is the cut level? Am I describing that, Corey? And they keep lowering it every year. So like 55, 50, 45. I don't exactly know what the numbers are.
They recently met and lowered the standards. Yes. And, Dan, you were describing our Wisconsin school scorecard, which it's at knowmyschoolwi.com. And if you go to the tab on proficiency and, you pick your district, you say, okay, English and math, and it shows you how it's trending over time. And for the most part, it's going down. Okay, and then it looks like it's going back up recently in almost every district. We actually had to add a line to say DPI changed the standards here.
Yes.
It's not safe to say, our kids are doing better. They can read, they can do math now. No, because now you're not comparing apples to apples. We had one standard here. DPI lowered the standard, and now it looks like we're doing better, even though we're not. And the funny thing is our legislature tried to put the standards back to what they were actually when Governor Evers himself was superintendent, and he vetoed it. So we are not in a great place right now in terms of tracking proficiency. It looks better than it is, which is really deceiving for parents and not helpful.
And there was a hearing about the forward exam yesterday, and Jill Underly, the state superintendent, just didn't show up. Didn't show up because it doesn't feel like this is what the lack of accountability in education is really frustrating. It's really frustrating, and that's why those of us who just stay in the fight. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, because you're dealing with this bureaucracy that it's so bloated, and there's so much money, and I mean, in every school district or, in my city, over half of all of our taxes, our property taxes, go to fund our school. And there are rural areas of Wisconsin and in other areas of this country where the school district is the primary employer. So imagine that the primary employer in a small town, that means a lot of folks work for the school district and they're not likely to vote themselves out of a job, or they're going to fall in line because they don't want to lose their job. And it's very hard. That's why we need school choice, and that's why we need accountability, which you're trying to provide. But it means that parents really, if I could just get more parents to get more involved and engaged and go to school board meetings, it would make, I'm telling you, if you just had 10 solid parents that showed up at every school board meeting asking questions, it would make a world of difference just showing up and being involved. They're not the most fun meetings, I will admit it. They can get really boring, but just showing up, and that's what we do at Moms for Liberty. That's why I'd advocate join a chapter, start a chapter, because we need more people, because it can be very exhausting to do all this work. And so, many hands make light work. So if you had more engaged grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles that just care, you should care about your schools. A lot of times your property values are dependent upon good schools, and it's just the right thing to do. So I really encourage folks listening to get involved and to care, because it makes so much of a difference. They've been able to get away with a lot of shenanigans because not enough parents are watching.
It's true. Yeah, I've seen posts on social media along the lines of, one of the problems in public schooling is that it's viewed as a jobs program for adults rather than getting an education for children. And it sounds almost hyperbolic because it's school. Of course, the primary education is for children. But if you go to school board meetings, I am not lying, sometimes the kids will not come up in the discussion. How are our kids doing? Are they learning? And that's not across the board, but it happens. And there have been school districts that say, well, we can't cut that position. We have to provide jobs. Well,
Yeah.
That's not the goal. That shouldn't be the primary goal. It should be about the kids and how they're doing and how they're learning.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. This has been a great conversation. In closing, what advice would each of you give to the parents and the people watching? And what are the things to watch for legally, the Supreme Court, in the next few months?
As I said, just be active, stand up, speak out, organize on Facebook, be vocal in your community, go to meetings, listen to your kids, ask your kids what they're hearing at school, and talk to other moms and dads about that. So every school's got a little group, of sort of right-leaning parents, I think, and a lot of times they organize on Facebook, and having those groups is really important to learning what's actually going on in a school district. So, I mean, we at the U.S. Supreme Court, we'll get the opinions up through the end of June for this term, and we'll hear about the West Virginia case on Title IX about sports. And whether men can be banned from women's sports. That'll be a big decision. We should also hear something about the state of Washington's runaway law, which was passed a few months ago, which says that mandatory reports and public officials and government employees, they must report to parents if they learn that their kids have run away from home, except if the child is transgender. So this transgender runaway law is at the U.S. Supreme Court. We should hear something about that. There are other situations around the country that people should be aware of state officials, government officials, school districts, mental health, so-called mental health professionals, helping young girls run away from home. I think we're going to hear in the next year a lot more about runaways, and that is an epidemic that's going on right now. So kids, moms need to think about, asking their daughters about this issue and start talking about it now, because it's going to be more and more prevalent. So those are the things I would look out for, and also following, our new Richmond lawsuit, and other lawsuits that we have out there where parents have been abused by school districts.
And Corey, I have one last question. So there has been a change in leadership at the New Richmond School Board, where Christy Whalen, who was the Moms for Liberty endorsed candidate, she won the most votes, and she knocked out that board president, Brian, whatever his name is. And so what would happen if the New Richmond School Board decided we're going to change the policy and we're going to get rid of this policy? What would happen with the lawsuit or with the Title IX investigation?
I would love to see that happen. I think that's like one of the best case scenarios. We have the model policy that would make it easy. But yeah, I mean, typically if something like that were to happen, if they were to pass a policy and it were to comply with Title IX and protecting all students' rights, then maybe we could dismiss our case. It's hard to say what exactly would happen, but I would really like to see that happen. I think that would be a good thing for the local community. And the other thing I wanted to say in closing will be brief and will echo a little bit of what Dan said, but I want to encourage everybody to talk about these things more. I know it's not the most politically correct all the time, but it's really important, and you should be talking to other parents, your family members, your kids, because what we've seen in New Richmond is a number of parents knew each other and they knew that they didn't like this policy. A lot of them reached out to us one by one. Other parents reached out to us and said, I don't like what's going on. I don't like this policy. And they didn't know each other. Whether you're reaching out to us, sharing about it in the community, talking to your kids, I think it's always easier to fight these battles when you're not alone.
Yes, so true. It's that community that those parents had each other's backs, and they delegated roles. When I was working with the parents in New Richmond, what I thought was so great is the way they were able to identify what they were good at and identify and take on roles and work together. And it just made everything work smoothly. And it's just, to me, I'm going to write about it. It's such a textbook. What I saw, there was such a great example for other communities to follow if you want to be successful. And they put up with a lot. But you know what? In closing, what I will say is talking to Ella's parents and to Ella, I talk to them a couple of times a day still. And I knew that it was getting a little bit hard. And after going on the Fox News program, Ella did so great. You both did so great. And that clips all over the place. Ella had some response from adults in the community who should know better. And so I put out a post just saying, hey, give a shout out to Ella. She's getting, the haters are coming after her. Let's show her some love. And 2 million engagement, liked by Elon Musk, reposted all over the place. And they felt so much love out there. And it goes to show these haters, they're like 5 people in their parents' basement. Okay. The people that most people are celebrating what Ella did and what the parents did. And it's, who knows what 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl is going to be inspired to do the same thing and fight back. And it makes a world of difference. One person can make a difference. And usually there's a little saying that I have up. The people that think that one person can make a difference are the ones who often do. And I firmly believe in the power of just a person who believes and just won't give up and will keep doing the right thing. So that's it.
Yes, that's a great message.
I thank you guys so much for coming on, and I thank you guys so much for all you do for the children and families in Wisconsin and throughout the country, because you represent, you take on cases that are federal, and I don't know what we'd do without you. So thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And we'll be talking soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I am so glad to have Ella on again. And I just finished talking to the lawyers at Will, Dan Lennington and Corey Brewer. And Ella could not be on that first interview because she has school and she has track. And what events do you do in track?
I do triple jump, long jump, pole vault, and I also do a 4x1. So I occasionally run sometimes. I'm not a huge runner though.
Oh, but you're a jumper, obviously.
Yeah, I like jumping.
And you also, and then in the fall, you play volleyball.
Yep.
Are you planning on playing collegiate sports? Or are you going to try for anything like a scholarship in any of those
I wouldn't
sports?
mind going to college for track. And my mom really wants me to go for volleyball, and I've been thinking about it. I don't know. I do it for either, really.
Yeah. Has your prom happened yet?
It's on the 25th, so next weekend.
Next weekend, do you have your dress?
Yeah, I do. I'm getting it hemmed a little bit from my grandma's friend right now, but
Yeah, my daughter's prom is this weekend, so her dress is ready. We've got hair appointments, set, all of that good stuff, all of the fun stuff of high school. So big. There was big news. You were on national TV on Fox News. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
it felt unreal. I don't think it was a different type of nervous, because obviously you have like a racing nervous and like school nervous when you're like presented in front of class, but this was like a nervous I've never had before. And sitting in the chair, like waiting to be on air, because it takes a little bit. So I was like watching the news and stuff, and then it says, and I'm here with, and then I show up on the screen. I'm like, oh brother, and then I don't know. I was lost for words. It's my whole mind went blank, and I didn't know what to say. But I think I did a pretty good job.
You did really good. You did a really good job. And I'm going to, the clip, I'm going to play that at the end. So but you did really good. But that is totally normal. So the first time that I did, so when it's live, it's just so weird that when live, it's like your mind for 1 second can go completely blank. That's a very normal reaction. And that's why I tried to like memorize some certain things to get my brain going, because it's just something about doing something live, national, and the way how fast paced it's like you have to, it's to me, it's really hard. I'd much rather do this. I'd much rather talk to people in a podcast. I could talk for hours. I can interview, have no problem with that. But these like the Fox News, Newsmax, those kind of things still, they scare me. Still, like they're not my favorite thing to do. They're necessary, but not my favorite. Yours was a little bit longer form with Harris Faulkner, and Corey Brewer was there. She live streamed in, and so you had at least you had Corey there, so that there was someone else taking some questions. But was it fun seeing how everything works behind the scenes?
It was really cool because I was just sitting in the chair. A lady comes in, starts putting on my mic, and other ladies putting powder all over my face.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that goes into it.
They do a sound check and mic check, and they tell you to sit a certain way and to move. Yep, all of that stuff. But I mean, that's a big experience for 16. How did your family, friends, people in the community, did they text you a lot? Like, I saw you on TV?
Yeah, right after my mom's phone just blew up. I go on Facebook and like one of our like friends in Richmond's posted it. Oh my goodness, she's on the news. And yeah, it was super fun. I kind of kept it a secret. So then when I told all my friends, they were like, no way. Like they were all surprised. And a lot of people have been talking about it too.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are talking. The posts they've gone viral on numerous big accounts. I posted something and that had like 2 million views, and then Elon Musk liked it. Oh, actually, I'll pull it up really fast. I have here. Let's see.
I made so many signs that night. Me and my mom were literally at the dinner table until like 10 at night making hundreds of signs.
That's a good picture. Yes, I saw. There's a photo of you like kind of laying on the floor making like all of those signs, which is really cute. So yeah, so here, this is the post, like, and this is one of the clips. There you are, and they have that background there. And then this was from here. We could play like this here.
Because it's the school board, but it's also for us as kids, as young girls that are scared to use the restroom. That shouldn't be happening. And I'm thankful that they're able to look me in the eye, talk to me, tell me what my future is going to look like. And I'm hoping that you guys can all help my future be better than what it is right now. Thank you guys so much.
One of the reasons why I put out that post, and I was talking to your mom, was because I know that there are people on social media that will say some just rude and untrue things, and they hide behind, their computers. Sometimes they don't even put their own name. Oh, hold on. And so I wanted to put something out there that was, I wanted to put that out there because I wanted you to see how much support you have. And there was so much support, right? Peyton McNabb reposted, Riley Gaines reposted with messages. Lots of famous people reposted and sent messages. We're with you. We'll follow you. And your X account, I have to look at how many people are following you now, but your X account went from like 3 to a pretty big account now. Like last I checked. So that's giving you already kind of a platform. You have 23,000 followers. There are people that are on X for years and don't get that many followers, but you got that many followers in a week. And so that just shows the power of your message and that you have influence. And how do you feel about that at your young age, that you are shaping a national conversation?
I feel proud to be able to be the one that gets to do it. I mean, anyone from those speeches could have been able to do it, but I'm just grateful that like I was the one that got to do all this fun stuff. It's been a crazy ride and there's been a lot of hate, but I think the love comments definitely outweigh it. I've gotten way more kind comments than I have been like when I went on the news. After that, I had so many people flooding, finding my Instagram, like positive comments they're commenting. And I was like, wow, I just feel really loved and supported. I don't know how to explain it.
That's really good. I'm glad you feel that way, because I think people can focus on the negative and not the positive, and all of the love, the affirmation that you had people reposting saying that my teenage son is not as brave as you, or I don't know if I could ever have been as brave as you at that age. And just people saying, please keep fighting, please keep standing up. What you're doing is important. And I don't think you're very special. I don't think that anyone could have said these things just the way you did. I think very authentic. You have a very authentic voice, very respectful. There's no hate in your message. You're just making a very simple statement, which is, I shouldn't have to be here. I am just a teenager, but this is my life this is my reality, this is my bathroom, and I have the right to have privacy, and no one can tell me otherwise. And that's really important. I was talking to my friend James Lindsay, and he said something really interesting about this situation. And he's a famous podcaster, author, brilliant guy. Like this guy, he's a doctor, PhD, and he really understands political movements and philosophy. And he said that what's happening in your situation and across the country, that there are activists that need you and I and all the other women to pretend. We need to pretend that men can be women. We need to pretend that we're not afraid when a man walks into our private spaces. And we need to pretend that a man can become a woman. And the minute we're not pretending, then their whole illusion evaporates, and their perception is their reality. And that's not, and they don't care that it's not fair to you. It's very much just this kind of narcissistic, like, this is about me and how I feel. And there's a political movement behind it. And really, this message that you have isn't about politics. It's just about privacy and safety. And what do you think about that?
I totally agree. My mom, like, she's like, Ella, after everything going in, you should go into politics. And I say, I just say what I believe in. Like, this whole thing hasn't been about politics. I just had a problem with it and I spoke up about it. It's not about either side. This is how I feel. I just speak how I feel.
Do you now kind of see, though, how important it is to be involved in government, because these school board members, they make these important decisions, and lawmakers in our state and our congressmen, that what the legislation that they pass has a real effect on you? Is this like the first time you really kind of understood that? I know for me, and I was much older than you, but during COVID, it was the first time I realized just how impactful local elections and legislation that I watch on TV. You watch these guys debating on TV and you're like, whatever. And then suddenly it really affects you. It just hits you right between the eyes. It's not just like taxes, it's your life. It's the fact that in your world, this very strange phenomenon is happening where guys can just invade your spaces, and who knows what's next. They could be competing in your events. And then what do you do? Like you're supposed to pretend there's no biological difference between you and a boy?
Absolutely. I think one thing for me was we never, like, Nourishment never made it public when we were having like school board meetings or elections. Like, it was all kind of underground. I never knew any of this was happening. And this year it was like crazy to see Nourishment, my small town, like everyone was getting out and voting. Everyone was at the school board meetings. Like, after it started to affect them. I never thought that it would happen to me, though, because you're just so used to living your daily life with nothing else to it, and then it starts to change and you realize that it's a big problem and that it needs to be fixed.
Yep. Yep. And that's what's more, and at your young age, to understand that and to stand up and to say something is just, it's huge. It's huge. There's so few. I mean, look, there were some girls that spoke up at the school board meeting. There was a few other ones, but you really kind of stuck it out and you keep talking about it. And I think you never know, Ella. You don't know what 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl was watching you, and who will be inspired to do the very same thing, who will think, well, if Ella could do it, then maybe I can do it and I can say something. And I think it's really important that parents stand behind their daughters when they speak out. On the left, you see that all the time. You see, like, in the left, they're very activist about everything. Like, you see these like the trans rights groups and how they parade their kids around and they make their kids get involved in all this political stuff. And your mom never did that to you. I don't do that to my kids. Like we've never wanted to do that. But in this situation where there's injustice, you have to inspire and support your kids to stand up, because I mean, really, if you wouldn't have spoken out, I don't know if all of these things would be happening, because like Corey said, there are times where judges won't, they make decisions in a case because there's no children coming forward to say that I was harmed.
Yeah, I don't think I could have ever done it without the support from my family. Like, I look at the school board, I still remember it. I remember seeing my grandparents in the crowd, and I go up, I'm like,
Oh,
I'm so scared. I'm so happy you're here. And they're like, remember what God says. Like, don't be afraid. You got this. And I don't know, everyone's support. I don't think I could have done it without it.
so I didn't know that your grandparents were there too.
They stayed up past their 5 p.m. bedtime, and they were there.
Oh, that's so sweet. That is so great that you had your parents there, your brother there, your grandparents there, all there to support you. And that's amazing. That's really important. I'm sure that gave you a lot of strength, and I'm sure they've been praying for you to stay strong in all of this.
They have been. My grandparents have been telling all of their friends, and my group was like, they're so proud of you. Like when I went to go get my prom dress fitted, she's like, I'm so proud of you. You're doing great things. Like, I can't wait to see what your future holds. And they're spreading the word.
And there are some what we call like the haters out there, and I'm continuing to research, and I've done some research on some of them. There's one, and they were at the event where I was in New Richmond, and talking to you, your mom, and a lot of people in your community. They had this little protest. As you remember, the woman walking around in costume, the Handmaid's Tale costume, and I noticed somebody out there, and then I looked on social media, and there was somebody that was posting like just very nasty, like hateful things, and looked her up, and she's a literal, like she had a pentagram, like satanic, and claimed to be a witch who followed Lucifer. So that tells me we really are fighting evil. Like when the people that are against you and your mom and me and all that, when they when they put on their social media that they're a witch who follows Satan, that was affirmation for me that I'm on the right side. Hey, God, like, God, I got you.
Yeah, for sure. My mom's like, remember, like, give all your glory to God, because you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be doing the things. I wouldn't be as brave as I was that night without God. So I'm just grateful for every moment I get.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll rewind. So you were on the Fox News show because there was an announcement of a private action, a lawsuit filed in the federal courts on behalf of New Richmond students and parents. There was a parent association formed with the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. And you were on the talk show, and you've done a bunch of other things to talk about this, about what happened, what you faced, talking before the school board. So how do you feel about this lawsuit? Does this feel like empowering, like to take action, to stand up and go to court and really fight for what you think is right?
Yeah, I'm really excited, especially because it's public news now, because for a while it was just kind of private. But I think for now, like, everyone knows now, like, not even like the haters, the people I know, they all know, like, this isn't ending here. It's going farther, and we're taking action to it. And I'm really excited to see what happens as the outcome.
Yeah, it was a surprise. It was a surprise for even me. It was, I was told a surprise is going to happen, and I knew you were going to talk to Fox News, but I was hoping for something like this. But I was really happy to hear the news and glad that it could finally be out there. And on top of that, the Trump administration Office of Civil Rights just last month had put on notice to the New Richmond School Board that they were doing a Title IX investigation. And it was largely, you were quoted in that, in the press release. They talked about you and how your speech and the protest that you were part of the group that led a protest in your school. And that was cited as a reason why the Trump administration launched this investigation. So that you must feel that all of this must feel very, very good. Like you are one of the few people that you're seeing the wheels of justice turn and do good things.
Absolutely. And like I said, it feels crazy to be the face of everything. Like there is a lot of people that were agreeing with me, but it feels great to be speaking on behalf of them because a lot of people are scared. A lot of people can't do it. And there's some kids that are scared and their parents aren't supporting them and they're leading them in the wrong direction. And to that, I'm just grateful that I'm able to speak to them and maybe motivate them to do their own movement in their school.
Are you happy that a school board member that you can't vote, but that you supported Christy Wayland? Were you very excited to hear when you heard the news that she won and she'd gotten the most votes?
Me and my mom were going to our neighbors. I was writing little notes. I'm like, please help me out. Like, put Christy's little card for when it was voting day. My boyfriend woke up and went and voted in his PJs, saw some teachers. Everyone was voting that day. I was really happy to see that she won.
Yeah, and that she got the most votes.
It was well deserved.
It was well deserved. She beat out the school board president.
And
his loss was well deserved too. He did deserve that. There's more issues going on in your school than this bathroom issue. Like your mom has expressed that she wants your education to be better. She wants it to be better for your brother. There's a lot of other concerns, and she'd like to see those addressed. Is that what you're hoping, that they could just stop with this dumb policy of letting boys and girls bathrooms and things could just get back to normal, but also get better?
Yeah, that's what I hope will happen from everything that's going on.
Yeah. And before all of this, Ella, did you ever think about, did you notice things in your school that you thought, well, that's kind of political, or that, did you see anything in curriculum where you maybe even weren't uncomfortable, but just kind of noticed that things always seem to be slanted a certain way?
I think for sure. And with everything going on, now it's like, it's not just the topics and stuff, it's like teachers too. Like with everything going on, there's teachers now expressing their side. And my mom's like, well, I always quote my mom because she's really good mom, whatever. But she always says it's always a good teacher when you don't know what their beliefs are.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to see all these teachers. Some are the ones that are leaving hate comments about me. And it just feels like hurtful because our school always cares about like loving your students, caring about your students and whatever, all of that. And lately from my teachers, I've been feeling like hated and dismissed. So I think with everything going on, I'm excited to see what Christy does because I think everything will be swapped around. Every issue will be solved, transparency, because not even just the bathroom stuff. There was so much more going on at like the middle school and high school recently that the school is still like not being transparent about. They just say we have a problem and we're fixing it. Meanwhile, it's something crazy going on at the middle school.
What was going on at the middle school?
There was a shooting threat and the school board sent out emails saying that there's a problem and that they're working on it.
And they didn't tell parents that was what the problem was?
No,
Wow. So there is a transparency issue.
Yeah. we had to hear it from Eli. My mom never knew anything about it. Eli was like telling me everything about it, and yeah.
So there's a shooting threat at the middle school, and an email goes out that doesn't even describe what happened. It just said there was a problem and we dealt with it. That's not okay. That's not okay.
I know.
What else happened?
Well, we just have like a bunch of, well, recently at the high school, we've had a bunch of like ambulances coming through. I'm not sure, like at track practice today, we just had a ambulance pull up to the school. And then during school, we had a couple ambulances pull up to the school for something, but we don't know what's going on. We're all just learning in class. And yeah, I still don't even know, but
And parents feel like they don't know what's happening, that there's too many
Yeah.
secrets. There's too many secrets. And so you said that there are teachers posting comments about you on social media.
yeah, on the NR Students Against Moms for Liberty, they'll go and they'll comment hateful things on those. And then I go and I'm like, wait, isn't this who? Like, isn't this person? And I'm like, okay, I guess. And then
So
I see him at school and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how they don't feel bad about it.
That's awkward. That's definitely
Yeah.
awkward. I mean, that's awkward for an adult. So this is the New Richmond students, quote students, okay? Because it's more like the New Richmond Teachers Against Moms for Liberty, not students. But they call themselves like the students. This is a group that is comprised up mostly of another group, this Indivisible New Richmond group or Indivisible St. Croix, which is a radical left-wing group. You probably don't know too much about that, but other moms listening know what I'm talking about when I say indivisible, because we've got one here in my area. They're all over Wisconsin, all over the country. And so that's a private chat though, but there's this private group and then there's a public group, and this group attempted to engage in illegal campaign activity until I pointed it out. They were purchasing signs for school board members. They were running against Christie and the two write-ins that we supported, both of whom were parents in your school district that spoke out. Mary, who went viral talking about what was happening at your school. And they came very, very close to winning. And these were write-in candidates, so that's really hard. And they became really close. And I hope that I know Mary has signaled that she might run again, and I hope that she does. But so they were putting out these school board signs, but they did not create a campaign finance committee. They didn't go through the proper legal channels, and they had to rectify that. But this group is posting negative comments about you, Ella, and it's comprised of some teachers that are on the payroll of New Richmond. That's very unethical. They may have the free speech right to say that, but that's very unethical. And considering that the New Richmond School District is being investigated by the Trump administration and is now being sued in federal court, I think that's a very unwise choice for school staff to be harassing and bullying young girls that are their students in the school. That's really wrong and inappropriate. And I'm sorry that you're going through that.
It's okay. Like I said, the love is definitely outweighing the hate. So it kind of just rolls off my shoulder when I see all that. Because then I'm still getting tons of DMs, comments like, we love you, keep going. You're in the right. We're proud of you. And that's what just keeps me going.
Are there teachers that support you, that have been, kind to you? Good.
But it's definitely not public in comment sections. It's like hey, good job. I saw you on the news. Or I had a teacher write me a letter saying, you're doing great, keep going, and put some inspirational quotes from like women out on the card. And I thought that was really sweet.
That's really nice. That's really nice. That makes me feel a lot better. But I do wish that there was public support too, like, hey, leave her alone, or hey, we got you. But you know, that it's definitely disturbing to me that there are public employees that are part of a group like that New Richmond Against Moms for Liberty, because first of all, they tried to claim that we were behind everything, and that's not even true. The candidates, they did their own work. They worked really hard. We tried our best to support them, but they did all of the work. This was 100% the work of parents and community members and the candidates themselves. And you know, it bothers me. These kinds of mistruths and falsehoods do bother me, but you're right. The majority of the community was very, very supportive, and the online community is very supportive of you. So do you think, after all of this, that you would consider looking into journalism or getting involved in more public speaking? I know that it would be great to connect you more. You've met Jennifer Say, but to connect you with Jennifer Say and the girls with XXXY, because they know 100% how you feel. They've been the highs and the lows and the hate and the love. So I could definitely see you being somebody who has influence and that goes and talks to public groups and spreads awareness and is sort of an ambassador.
Well, I did want to go to college for communications, radio, sports broadcasting, stuff like that. So with everything going on, I think my public speaking, like, this has been a jumpstart for sure. Because if you would have asked me like a year ago to go on and speak at the school board to do all this, I would have said no. But I don't know. I think that this is helping me a lot for my future as well, besides everything else that's going on.
Well, you definitely have a future in public speaking and in this sort of activism. You know, you've already done so much. I could see you doing a lot more. That it's just that, not that you don't have any fear, but that you keep moving and working despite the fear. And that's what's really important. So I'm really grateful for you, Ella. I'm so happy that you have had the courage to speak out and that you continue to do so. And I look forward to seeing you again. I know I'll be in the St. Croix area this summer working with Jolene and working on some different things. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you again.
Me too.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Ella.
Thank you.